Isn't as happy as I would want it to be, but I'll let Olivia be the happy upbringing that we need. When one has been angry for a long time, one gets used to it, and it becomes comfortable. It becomes so familiar that they can't remember what it felt like to feel another way. Ignorance breeds fear. If you do not keep that fear in check, that fear will breed hatred. If you do not keep that hatred in check, that hatred will bring destruction. We want to destroy the things that we hate. Why? Because they frighten us. But guess what? They may have been harmless, and we were simply ignorant. Daryl Davis, a black musician, said this. He spent decades sitting face to face with members of the KKK. He didn't try to convert them with force. He listened, asked questions, and challenged them with presence and humanity. Over time, more than 200 Klansmen dropped and gave up their robes. He understood that hate is often rooted in fear, and fear in ignorance. And the most radical act we can take in a divided world is to talk. Not to agree, but to listen and to understand. That story stays with me, not just because it's brave, but because it mirrors so many things we see and live through today. My name is Africana, for those of you who don't know me. My family's from India, and I just learned that my grandma is also born in Zanzibar, along with my grandpa and of course my mother. That's in East Africa. I grew up not always knowing where I belong, especially in America. I've been read, misread, placed in boxes that didn't quite tell my story, make different assumptions. I've learned how quickly identity becomes something others try to define for you before you've even spoken. But I've also learned that it's very powerful to tell your own story and speak in your own words. So 2 summers ago, I went to Tanzania with my brother as a study abroad program. We studied Swahili, we met with community leaders, and we walked the streets of Zanzibar. These were only things I've heard from stories from my family, but to see it was something else. I felt a deep connection, but also a sense of distance. I was both home and not home, local and yet still a visitor. It was one of the most grounding yet disorienting experiences of my life, but it showed me something important. The African diaspora is not about finding one perfect place where you belong. It's about holding the complexity. It's about being yourself and seeing yourself as a part of a global story. One of movement, memory, creativity, and survival. Africana studies gave me the language for that story. It taught me that while yes, race is a social construct, it's also a lived reality. It taught me that ethnicity, culture, and community can't be reduced to checkboxes. That we are layered, we're nuanced, and we are constantly in the process of becoming. And yet, we still live in a world that wants to flatten us. A world where division is profitable, and misunderstanding is weaponized. We see it in politics, media, even our college campus. The push to simplify, to polarize, to fear what we don't know. But what if we chose differently? What if, like Daryl Davis, we sat down with people who challenged us and we listened? What if we treated people in a form of curiosity, as a form of resistance? What if we embraced the radical idea that our diversity is not a threat, but a resource? We don't have to fix themselves. Quite honestly, they probably aren't. The work starts with us and how we speak, how we show up, how we hold space for each other's stories, especially when they don't match our expectations. Let's be the generation that leads with empathy, that defends nuance, that builds bridges, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. The generation that airs our views, not by being rude or violent, but being polite and discussing with intelligence. Let's imagine and create a world where being different doesn't mean being divided. The diaspora isn't just something we've studied, it's something we live. It reminds us that our identities are not fixed, they are expansive. And that when we lean into that complexity, we don't just find ourselves, we find each other. In the end, the cement of prejudice can crack, it can crumble, and the ones who can help break it down are us. Not with anger, but with the power of dialogue, understanding, and empathy. What we leave behind is not as important to how we have lived. Thank you.